On July 13th, 1917, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to three shepherd children in Fatima and asked that Russia be consecrated to her Immaculate Heart. She said that if her request was granted, Russia would be converted and the world would have peace. If not, Russia would spread her errors throughout the world. At that time, Russia was not even a communist country, not until 3 months later, when the 1917 October Revolution in Russia led to Vladimir Lenin's rise to power. Since then, there have been multiple consecrations in response to Our Lady of Fatima's request by Pope Pius XII, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, and Francis. Even so, there remains great controversy as to whether all of the conditions were met or not. Having said that, it's beyond the scope of this video to make a judgment either way. However, it is interesting to note that the Chinese Communist Revolution, led by Communist Party Chairman Mao Zedong, came to power on October 1st, 1949, and so it does appear as if Russia did indeed spread her errors, at least in this case. More on that later. Atheistic communism is, among other things, a philosophical and ideological movement that totally denies the existence of God. As such, the Catholic Church has spoken forcefully against it. For example, during the mid-1800s, Pope Pius IX condemned communism as a doctrine opposed to natural law and would result in the complete destruction of human and divine laws, government, private property, divine worship, and subvert the entire order of civil society. In so doing, civil law would determine parental rights over their children, especially in religious matters, and that priests were not to be involved in the religious education of children, but were encouraged to publish short works that build up the faith as a way of countering the spread and influence of bad books and other publications. In the 1930s, Pope Pius XI also condemned atheistic communism because it is openly hostile to the Catholic Church and God Himself. It undermines Christian civilization, refuses mankind any sacred or spiritual character, upsets the social order, strips man of his liberty and dignity, opposes marriage, rejects parental authority over their children, prohibits the religious education of children, denies any link between a woman and her family and home, removes all moral constraints, and eliminates all private ownership and means of production. He goes on to say that where communism asserts its power, bishops and priests have been tortured, killed, condemned to forced labor and exiled. And lay people suspected of defending the Catholic Church were persecuted, dragged off to trial, and thrown into prisons. The communist endgame is to create a new era and a new civilization without God. And as a side note, Pope Leo XIII in the late 1800s echoed the same concerns about socialism, saying it was a deadly plague that leads to the ruin of human societies, in part by exercising control over the family, thereby destroying the structure of the home, redistributing wealth among the working class, and holding all private property and possessions in common under state control. And finally, in a 1949 decree against communism, Pope Pius XII said that Catholics are forbidden from joining or showing favor to communist parties, and are forbidden from publishing, distributing, or reading publications that support communist doctrine or activity, and that anyone who professes, defends, or promotes materialistic communist doctrine may not be given the sacraments, and is automatically excommunicated as an apostate from the Christian faith. Communists, like Freemasons, are determined to destroy the Catholic Church. When that happens, they believe all of the other forms of Christianity are doomed to collapse. Belladad, a former communist insider turned Catholic under then Monsignor Fulton J. Sheen, testified that she recruited more than 1,100 communist men into the priesthood during the 1930s and 40s to destroy the church from within, and it's hard to imagine that she would have been the only recruiter. Many of those men would later become bishops and even cardinals, just in time for implementing Vatican II. And finally, the Chinese Communist government recently proposed a 30-year plan to usurp the United States as the biggest global superpower by the year 2050. A very bold plan with severe international consequences, to be sure. Remember Fatima. Also, in contrast to Pope John Paul II's and Benedict XVI's negotiations with China, Pope Francis entered into a provisional agreement with the Chinese government in 2018 to unify the underground Catholic Church, persecuted Catholics who are faithful to Rome, with the Chinese Patriotic Catholic Association, the communist-run Chinese Catholic Independent Church, which is not faithful to Rome. Remember, communists do not believe in God, and the Chinese government dominates that puppet church. In a recent LifeSite News interview, Cardinal Zen, a world-leading expert on the Catholic Church in China, warned that communists never accept compromise. They want full surrender. And so we are now standing at the bottom. They finished the operation selling the church. Next up, the media and its impact on the infiltration and destruction of the Catholic Church.